It is 7:30. Time now to cross over to Peter and his guests. They're out at the CSIR and we're talking to different mayors from different municipalities across Africa. They're going to be discussing what can cities do to help citizens be more sustainable. Sounds like an interesting discussion. So this is where we hand it over to Peter and his guests. Peter, a very, very good morning to you all.
Right, a very warm welcome. Thank you very much, Leanne. Welcome to all of you watching from across South Africa and indeed across the continent. We're here in Tshwane for the latest in the series of New Age business briefings brought to you by the SABC and today very kindly sponsored by 49M Eskom. And cities, African cities are in focus. In fact, this week, a lot's been happening in the city of Tshwane. Sustainability Week is sharply in focus. And one of the key events has been the second annual African Capital Cities Sustainability Forum, where capital cities across the continent have gathered to share ideas and to talk about sustainability and how citizens, I guess, can be better empowered, lives improve, but also contribute to building these great cities that we have. You'll find, and we've been seeing, that this continent is certainly a continent of growth, and our cities are growing, and they're growing very quickly. And that comes with its benefits, but also certainly with its challenges. And to unpack that and this journey of sustainability in our cities, it's my great pleasure now to welcome a panel of mayors that will be sharing their thoughts about experiences in their countries and that perhaps could be a benefit to the entire continent. And I'm going to start perhaps with the host mayor, the executive mayor of Tshwane here in South Africa, Councillor Josienzo Rampopa. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Peter, and good morning to the viewers at home.
And all the way from Monrovia in Liberia, Mayor Clara Doe Mvogo, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to South Africa.
Thank you. I've had a very beautiful time so far.
Wonderful. And next to you is the mayor of the newest capital city in the world, South Sudan, Juba, Mayor Stephen Wanikaya. Thank you very much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you, SABC, to host me at this moment.
It's a pleasure for us. And next to you, we have the regional director of ICLE Africa. And this is a network of local governments, and the regional director for that is Kobe Brandt. Thank you very much, Kobe, for being part of this panel.
Thank you very much. An honor to be here.
All right, so perhaps just by way of kind of starting this conversation, let me start with you, Mayor Ramkopa. Yesterday you had your plenary. Second gathering of this forum. Perhaps if you could just take us through some of the important issues that are coming through for African cities at this time, particularly when we start thinking about sustainability, because it means different things for different cities at different levels, doesn't it?
I guess the starting point is try and explain the rationale why in the first instance we thought that we must inaugurate a session of these forums with our peers across the continent. There's a very rich body of literature that suggests that cities are engines for growth, epicenters for development, and in fact they're beginning to surpass nation sovereign state in terms of their contributions to the growth of the economy. And in fact these are highly contested spaces of opportunity and privilege. And as a result they serve as, they've got a magnetic effect that the people from the rural hinterland come to these urban spaces seeking for opportunity and exploiting these privileges. And that brings about the downside. And the downside is that as a result of rapid urbanization, the nature and the structure of these city spaces are not designed to accommodate to the desired levels the amount of people who come into these urban spaces. And that results in urban poverty, it results in decay, and the most palpable manifestation of these problems is the extent of the growth in informality, the informal settlement. So we felt that it is important that we have this conversation as African cities, because at the global forum, you have the global north, that has got a different set of problems that are unique to them. And our acute problem is that people have need access to basic services like water, electricity, sanitation, and decent shelter. So it's important that we have this conversation. On the issue of sustainability, my view is that let's granularize it so that the people have a better appreciation, so that we don't alienate ordinary people from the conversation. I mean, if we, back here at home, we had an immediate past challenge that we had was the issue of drought, which was the most severe in decades. And what that means is that the price of food is going to increase above inflation, and people who are disproportionately affected by that is the poor, because the share of their income spent on basic foodstuffs is greater than what compared to people at different social incomes. So it's important that they were able to inaugurate interventions that ensures that there's some degree of food security for the poor. And then there are issues around water. We take it for granted that when people come to the urban spaces, they've got access to water. You can see in some instances the service delivery protest in our country, people are not satisfied with rudimentary services. They want household connection of water, sanitation, waterborne sanitation. We need to have that conversation. If you look at the organization and the architecture of the economy of African cities, is that there's a high presence of what we call the informal sector. And this is a conversation that the global north will not have. So it's important to see how we assimilate that part of the economy into the mainstream economy. So the purpose of this forum is to ensure that we learn and unlearn from each other and inaugurate innovations on how best to respond to these challenges. And in this way, we are able to accelerate the interventions that are more impactful, and they've got a signature of this African conversation.
All right. Well, we're going to unpack quite a number of the things that you mentioned in a little bit more detail. But let me turn to you, Mayor Ndoro. And you know, your city was challenged recently with crises such as Ebola, and I guess this tests a lot of your resources. So when you were coming here to join the conversation, what were some of the issues that you were bringing, maybe even lessons that you've learned just from an experience such as that about your city and its readiness for some of the challenges that it faces?
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to share the most recent experience we had with Ebola. I think Ebola brought to the forefront that we had some challenges in our healthcare delivery. And it also brought to the forefront the fact that the informal settlements were really being not prepared to even take care of the emergency that came out of Ebola. You add that to the fact that before Ebola, we had a serious migration of people from the rural to the urban setting because of the post-war situation. Now look at the current downturn in the economy. Liberia depends on the exportation of rubber, iron ore, timber, and those commodity prices have dropped. So when you look at us being able to handle the challenges that coming from post-Ebola, post-war, a large migration to the city, we really have our hands full in a city like Monrovia. Before the coup in 1980, Monrovia infrastructure and social services were established for about 500 residents. Today in Monrovia, we have 1.5 million people. So you can see the challenge to even things like housing, electricity, water. We have all of those challenges, and it's not easy when you have a downturn in the economy. You're hoping to catch up, and then all of a sudden you have to start saying, oh, but we cannot afford this, we cannot afford that. So it's a challenge being a mayor in a city like Monrovia, coming out of a war and recovering from Ebola.
All right. Well, again, I think many lessons learned, and perhaps we'll explore those in a bit more detail. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll start to hear the story of the newest country in the world, the newest capital city in the world, and the challenges that brings. Stay with us for that.